Hello, folks who are there, and hello, folks who are listening in. Here we are on our many. It's been over 2 dozen, I believe. Family forums for Tuesdays. 2 dozen may be a high estimate. You all can check my count. It is Tuesday, December 1st. It is at the least, I believe, the fourth month of our family forums. Those of you who are here, feel free to chime in with questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. And those of you who are listening in, we're going to run through the weekly number updates from the Department of Health, and I will answer any questions that have come in this week. And then next week, just give a heads up for folks, on December 8th, we'll be giving a preview of some initiatives that will be happening this December, January, and February in terms of two parallel initiatives. One, you've already heard of, which is listening sessions facilitated by Equity Alliance Minnesota. Equity Alliance Minnesota is one of our organizational partners who's been working with Great River School for 2 years now, and this year is working with both staff and students and families and laying the groundwork really for a wide variety of input and perspectives gathered so that the school can really lay out good, clear information for the next incoming interim school leader and really inform the school board in our current strategic plan and how to carry out the school's mission and address educational equity, which means equal access to outcomes at education here at Great River School. Secondly, another thing that will be happening this winter, starting now and then going through really establishing through March and then carrying forward for the foreseeable future will be something we call parent advisory councils. And the state of Minnesota will have more information about this next week, but the state of Minnesota does by law require any school who has American Indian students to have a parent advisory council. And Great River School is establishing a more wide-reaching parent advisory council reach to ask any parents from groups that are identified as not having equal outcomes in education to be part of an advisory council to talk to the school formally and the school board formally about outcomes for students. So I'll give a more formal preview next week. But those of you who are listening in or watching now, you can know to bring your questions around both listening sessions and parent advisory councils next week. There'll be a little bit more information about that, though formally presented a week from today. For right now, what I'm going to do is just take us through the public health information that is available. And I'll also promote Holly, my intrepid co-host, the Director of First Impressions. Holly, thank you for joining us. I'll just let Holly's audio get started here. And then I am noticing a little bit of backlight causing some issues, so I'm going to change my lighting here. Let's go. All right, here we go. Hello, Holly, and welcome.
Hi, thank you for waiting.
Oh,
I know you didn't wait.
well, I started, but I gave a little preview of what's coming next week, and then I do need you, though, Holly, for a key moment, which is I'm going to show some data, and I need you to let me know if the data, in fact, is projecting.
Okay.
Can you see a table right now that shows the 7 metro counties in 2 different tables?
Yes.
Thumbs up. Okay, great. Well, so for those of you who are looking, and perhaps you count on this as your weekly update. This is raw data that we take and then compile here, and this data is provided by the Department of Health. When I say raw data, I suppose that's not specifically true, in that raw data would be hospitals calling us and us putting it together. So this is in fact processed data from the Department of Health, but what we have done is taken that and crystallized it into what applies to our school. So we have 7 counties in the metro area. We have students from actually a couple other counties in addition, but right now what we are using is these 7 counties to represent both the percent of test positive by county rate, and then also the COVID case rate per 10,000 people. Again, when these numbers per 10,000 are down around or below 15 or 10 per 10,000, that's when we're going to start looking at more in-person models for students, or we also want to see the percent of test positive by county to be really at or below 5%. And you've heard, I'm sure, in the news a lot about other cities, large cities, in fact, New York City public schools, who set test positive rates as one flag that made them pull back from in-person learning. And in fact, because their positivity rate at schools was lower than that, I understand that they have just announced that they'll be bringing elementary students back in person. We are living during a time for which we don't have a precedent. And so I will just remind folks that as long as this is our best available data, this is what we'll use. And again, if and when data becomes available that's more focused or able to really razor sharp look at just the people at our school for positivity rates and or case rates, we will use that. But for now, we see numbers really extravagantly high in terms of cases per 10,000, and I'm sure you've been hearing on the news. Really, as a reminder, we want to make sure that our hospitals are available for people who need them, and the number of folks who have this virus and perhaps are burdening our hospitals with respiratory needs, respiratory treatment needs, becomes a danger to everybody who has a hospital need that may not be COVID related. And so this is a public health emergency, and we are living through it, and you can see those numbers really high by county. Again, Hennepin and Ramsey are most populous counties, looking at around 120 to 125 per 10,000, and other counties, Anoka County being high. But I also notice here every county has gone up. And so having just observed the Thanksgiving holiday and hearing of current daily rates being reported, I know that the climb we've been on for a couple of weeks just yesterday subsided a little bit. And what we're looking for is a pattern of seeing that subside. Holly, if I scroll down here, do you see the bar graphs that show the 7 counties?
Not yet.
Okay, great. So in any case, there are bar graphs, and this document, again, is linked on our website, as many of you know. And so we're looking for these test positives by county to be below 5%. And again, these case rates per 10,000 to be in the low teens or below 10. And we have been there before as a state and a region, and so we look forward to being there again. With that, I'll just remind folks that I will stop sharing my screen, and I'll remind folks that our school website does have really almost all the data you'd ever be looking for, and including our recordings of these info sessions. So, Holly, any questions come to mind?
The 14-day case rate showed up.
Oh, good. Okay.
Oh, now it's back to the charts. Oh, now
Okay.
it's
Well, I just stopped sharing screen, so
okay.
So it's just slow to take.
Yeah, there's a distance between us.
there is. It's a digital distance, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I don't have any striking questions that have come up because we had we had 3 days off, but today
Right.
I did get one, and it was a mom requesting suggestions for whether or how to get your child to get to class on time.
Oh, how to help your child get to class on time.
Yeah. Like
get to digital class on time.
Yes.
There's just so many answers and so many age groups to take into account. So
this would be a high schooler.
Yeah, this is a high schooler.
Yeah, without a phone. So
well, good for them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what has worked for me is both to set reminders, and of course you can use digital devices to do so. But just one moment. Large sheets of paper tend to help, where you post them right where you're going to be, and you write down what you're going to do. And right next to those things, I would put, and I don't have it with me at a moment, but I do have a watch. I would put a clock, right?
Oh.
And so I don't mean to be facetious, but truly and honestly, having a paper calendar is something that has helped my children, and so this helps. And then getting to class on time, I think, is one of those executive functioning skills that we'd be working on in person in school. And so,
yes,
frankly, you as a parent are really just witnessing probably the same kind of, I guess I would say, training regimen that we witness at school all the time, which is often reminders help, and addressing a non-success with a plan rather than addressing a non-success with a admonishment is probably a good idea. So
Right.
what do you think might help you get to class on time? Having that kind of conversation is something that we, in fact, try to start excavating out of students at the earliest ages. You know, do you think this is a problem? What are some consequences you might see for this happening? You know, a lot of students, frankly, work on this college skill when they go to college, and we like to work on this academic skill starting in first grade. And so if you're experiencing at home that it's hard to get to class on time, I recommend starting with that reflective conversation. A reminder that the handbook that we sent out at the start of the year having to do with distance learning and setting out some of the policies and practices does lay out a caregiver checklist. And for fear of my Zoom crashing, I would search for it on the internet right now, but I will pull it up maybe for next week. But that caregiver checklist of what went well today, what could go better, at this point in the year, you're probably dealing at home with some patterns your student has that are consistent. And I would say addressing those patterns with a plan. So have your student choose, is it a paper calendar? Is it a written reminder? Is it setting an alarm on a clock at home of how to get to that routine time and meeting place? What is it that'll engage that student in meaningful participation in keeping track of what's going on? So that's my general answer. For our youngest students, I know that I set an alarm for my own self to check in with say, my second grader, if I'm the parent helping that person. And secondly, if you do have multiple children at home, or frankly, even if you have peers who are not at your house but can call your child, you can set up peer networks also to connect with each other and remind each other. So multiple kids at home, they can all remind each other when in classes. And if you don't have multiple kids and you don't have the capacity as a parent, this is where I've seen some of the parent networking happen through support groups or check-ins. So the lower elementary and upper adolescent have had regular check-ins, and I believe tomorrow night will be our first upper elementary parent check-in. But any upper elementary parents can go. Tomorrow night is also another lower L check-in. And I know there are some families who have the capacity to, connect with other students too. So if your high schoolers at home and you would like some support, go to one of those upper adolescent check-ins or ask your high schooler if there are peers or other adults in their life that they think could help them also remember, because an aunt or an uncle or a family friend who has a reminder on their phone and can call home and say, hey, Al, did you go to class yet? That might be good.
That's good. We do have a question in the Q&A.
All right, let's answer that.
Also, any tips to get teens to turn on their cameras for classes, especially when guides are asking for this?
Well, I will be direct. Teens, you've been called out here. So, quote, any tips to get teens to turn on their cameras for classes, unquote. Yeah, I'll say directly, there are many good reasons to feel self-conscious about the camera. And there are at this point only a few good reasons to keep the camera off. And those reasons should be that you and an adult in your life had a discussion, and it's really necessary for your physical well-being and or mental stability to have the camera off. And if that's the case, you're probably working on some really formal plans on how to work on that so that you can address that anxiety or you can address that feeling of discomfort. So that is some folks. Some teens have a condition that they're addressing that is either mental or social, emotional, or physical, where literally they need professional help or routine intervention. That's not most of us though, teens. And so I'm just gonna say teens, unless you're in the 15 to 17% of people who need to have the camera off because literally you don't have the coping tools to deal with the discomfort. At this point, you're not even listening anymore because I've already given the preface that it's just too long. Teens, turn on your cameras. I'm lonely. Your teachers are lonely. We need to see your face. Also, it is for your own personal well-being that if you see other faces, it's a little bit better than not seeing faces. And we're in this thing for the long haul, folks. So please, teens, please turn on your cameras. Now, since this question is not from a teen, but in fact from a parent, I suppose the tip that I have is please address this directly with your teen. And I see several examples where I think families and parents, maybe last spring or maybe over the summer, wanted to address that having your camera on so people could see your house is a little bit of an interruption to the normal privacy you had at home before distance learning. And so I guess I would say, work with your teen, specifically parents, this is your tip. Work with your teen to identify what is it that has them keeping their camera off. Is it that most kids don't have their cameras on? Is it that when their camera is on, they feel blank, uncomfortable, and privacy invaded, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Is it that they don't like looking at themselves or are self-conscious about that? Because frankly, I wouldn't like to go through the day looking in the mirror either. So there are a couple settings, especially on one of the reasons we use Zoom is because it is more secure and a few more controls for teachers to use. But one thing you can do on Zoom is you can turn off your camera just to see everyone else's face, but not your own. And so if that helps, please do that, teens. Secondly, maybe at home, families, if you have the time and ability, work with your teens to set up a background or environment that your teen is perhaps a little more amiable and amicable to showing on the screen. Thirdly, I guess I would say the long-term consequence of us living through this time right now is likely that many of us, teens, you especially, have more years in front of you in which you're going to be asked to do this kind of thing than you have behind you. In fact, many people's discomfort with Zoom calls and video calls were the reason were the reason that those companies weren't taking over the world with meeting times before this pandemic. Now, because of the cost of travel, housing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you teens are the most likely people to be living in a job, life, and or public marketplace where you have to be on a Zoom call for part of your job sometime in the next several decades, and maybe most of your job. And so I guess I'll identify that you being able to show your beautiful face on camera allows you right now to start dealing with what comes up for you. And, I just really miss seeing everybody. And so do your teachers. And one of the reasons that guides have started to ask everyone to turn their cameras on is because it is in the interest of the social, emotional, physical, and psychological health of those 15 to 17% is the most recent highest estimate I've seen for people whose experiences of anxiety, depression, and or other conditions really make it difficult to have that camera on and imagine people seeing them. It is really good for those folks to see other faces, not to see other emojis, and not to see other avatars, not to see just blank names. And so I'm pleading with all of us who are capable now of showing our faces to do so. And I suppose I will note, it's been since early August we've been doing this, Holly, and you and I show our faces, but not many other people want to show theirs either. So I understand it. I get this little rush of adrenaline before we do this, and I think, should I have dressed up more? Are people going to comment about having shaved my beard? Should I have waited for a fundraiser to shave half the beard? Oh no. And so a couple things. We can shave my beard in the spring for a fundraiser. Not that many people care as much about what I look like as I do, probably. Also, I think seeing faces really helps us. So there, I've given my 4-minute soapbox about teens. The tip, I guess, is short of incentives, ask what can help. Secondly, parents, don't be too cautious to incentivize turning on a camera with helping with a nice background cloth or helping to talk about the issues. And frankly, talking about it starts with asking questions and letting your teen answer honestly. And so I would be very clear with them as a parent and say, I just want to say I'm asking a question here. My goal is for us to have our camera on while you're in class. And I just want to know honestly, why don't you want to do it? So it's less coercive and probably more straightforward than you think as a parent, but I'm a parent too. I actually am concerned about my teen and the pressure to be on camera all the time. And so I guess I would say to those teens who are out there and elementary students, it'd be better for you to be direct with your teacher and have your camera on as much as you can and then just tell them when you need a screen break or to be off Zoom and go do your work separately. We'd rather see you on camera for 20 minutes than have your camera be off for an hour and a half during a lesson or a class. So I like pets. Teens, this is your chance to leverage your family to get pets, basically, is what I'm saying. If you're still listening, which few teens are, parents, I've just set you up to have your teens ask for pandemic puppies and pandemic kittens in order to turn their cameras on, as Holly is demonstrating. All right. There was one other question. I know somebody asked about, are we still keeping updated with how many folks are reporting cases of COVID? Yes, we are, if they're on campus. If you're not on campus, you can report to us and we'll include those in off-campus reporting numbers. But for on-campus numbers, we're still getting folks with negative tests. We still have very few positive tests on site. And we are doing some forward planning already internally to address what will it look like if and when people can get vaccines. And so I'm keeping updated with the Department of Health and Department of Education on how that looks and works. And you know, we are entering a time, these next 3 weeks in December, where we all hope that cases can go down this winter and that we can start looking at having, again, more people back on campus for School Resource Center, and then look at a time where we can bring our youngest students back to campus regularly first. So I didn't receive any other questions this past holiday week, but I do want to actively thank all the families who had a really great response rate to the educational equity survey that we sent out last week. I want to thank all families who filled that out. I will also note for anyone who's watching now or anyone who's listening in the next week that we have sent out a head of school reminder survey. And so if you want to participate in the process of either interviewing others, but if you want to apply, of course you can, interviewing people for the applicant for interim head of school, you can put your name in to do that. And then also getting involved in the process for the more extended permanent search for a permanent head of school. The school board is gathering names currently, and the job will be posted this week in the next couple days. And then we'll be taking applications for an interim head of school through January 30th. And it is in the first couple weeks of January that we will be forming that interview committee to interview the next school leader. So I think one of the most remarkable things about this learning community is how folks need to realize, frankly, that you are why the school continues to operate every day. There isn't a big, grand, overarching school that's going to continue if you who are listening and watching, including students, aren't part of this. This only happens because you show up. And I think that really hits home when we're searching for a new school leader. The school leader's job, in my experience, is listening to as many voices as possible and then offering the best path that includes the most students and focuses on student experience forward in any decision that I or we have to make. And so to be part of that process for finding a person, I think is one of the best ways to participate and show your ability and capacity to keep this place going. So I don't take it for granted that we have a school, and I haven't for 7 years, and I don't take it for granted that we will just have a school in August. We have to keep working every day. We have to turn our cameras on, and we really do need people to get involved in both day-to-day, month-to-month committees and volunteering, and then also this search. And so if you want to be part of it, please do. And then next week, Holly and I will talk a little bit more about the parent advisory committees, especially for American Indian and Black, Indigenous, and students of color and families of color. And then we will also be just previewing a little bit the listening session plan for Equity Alliance Minnesota, holding open listening sessions on educational equity and how we can build the best and strongest learning environment for students. So that's all for this week so far. Holly, what's the name of your cat? What's your cat's name?
This one is, it's a silly name. It's Vibs, V-I-B-S. V as in
Vibs, okay.
Vibs.
Yeah.
Vibby.
Vibs. Oh, I like it. Well, they look very happy.
She is. She likes me.
Yeah. I mean, very extroverted, in a feline sense. Ready to have the camera on. Yeah.
She doesn't mind looking at herself on camera.
Not at all. Right.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, folks, those of you who have come tonight, thank you for attending. Those of you, I never know if students are attending using their parents' names or using made-up names, but you can ask any question about anything on these nights, and we will answer. And we will not be broadcasting during the 2 weeks of break this December, but we do have 2 more of these nights before break. And if you ever want to see a theme or see us address something in particular, please let us know through email or asking a question here. Okay. Thanks all. Bye, Holly. Bye, Vibbs.
Yes, Sam.
Bye, everybody who's live, and hello to everybody who's listening in. Bye.